So like when there's something that's like when there's a revolution, right? When there's something you believe in, something that I would go to prison for Bitcoin, for example. And I'm a father, like I got kids. Like it's something that I think it's already made the world better. Like I actually think that one of the reasons Brad Garlinghouse was in Washington D.C. is because of Bitcoin. The largest, most successful monetary network in the world is the United States dollar. You can go anywhere in the world and anybody will accept your dollars. They may not accept my Bitcoin, they may not accept your XRP, but anybody in the world recognizes one of those green sheets of paper with a little number printed on it. It is the largest monetary network in the world, bar none. Why are the French taking all their gold from the United States? So our gold reserves in the US were rapidly being depleted. So Richard Nixon said, "No, stop! Like we can't do it." They called our bluff. Richard Nixon he went on television. He said, "I'm going to temporarily," that was his word, not mine, temporarily suspend the convertibility of gold and dollars. So or else we would have lost all of our gold. I mean, I remember it was not so long ago. It was 29 cents, and now it's probably over $3. It could go up, but eventually, it's an investment more than it is a revolution. And when you see a revolution that has legs that can do it, man, that's where Bitcoin is a once in a lifetime opportunity, an opportunity for real change. And the fact that Crypto Titan, the fact Titan, that the United States government and several governments throughout the world have heard us, and that means XRP too. The fact that they have heard our voice, that is a testament to the fact that the revolution it's working.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a spicy line from our friend Brian here. To him, it seems that Bitcoin is a revolution. And I can empathize. I understand where he's coming from. Listen, this was a very serendipitous moment that I wanted to make sure that I was able to share. So I was on Twitter, right now, obviously, considering all of the news about the Strategic Digital Asset Reserve. There's been a lot of talk about XRP, Ripple, a lot of Bitcoin people are upset. And this was just a serendipitous moment. I was having an exchange with someone on X. They were, open enough to just kind of open a space. He just started a space and was like, hey, like, let's discuss this. He wanted to understand a little bit more about this XRP army and why people are supporting it so much. And I just want to start off with acknowledging how intelligent, humble, and respectful this guy was. Please do not in any way be rude with this guy or treat him in any kind of way other than with kindness and respect. We may be an army, but we do not have to be bullies. For anyone who is watching this from the XRP community, and for anyone who is from the Bitcoin community, I'm really very intrigued to continue these kinds of conversations. Please understand that I'm open, I'm curious, and I'm happy to have these kinds of conversations as well. Anyways, so throughout this conversation, I did my best to let him talk. He actually does bring up some really important points about history, monetary history, geopolitics, and it seemed that he was thinking very logically, which I once again appreciate and respect. And I highly recommend watching this all the way through because whichever side of the aisle you are on, there were some very interesting thoughts that were laid out throughout this conversation. But just to kind of get into this, I think there's obviously a lot of reasons why people are upset right now. But let's start off with the most obvious here. Okay, this right here is a chart looking at the returns of Bitcoin and XRP over the last 6 months. Let's zoom out. Let's look at the 1 year. Okay, we had this moment here in November, excuse me, where there was a little bit of an overtaking of the yearly returns that you're seeing from XRP. And in fact, we have kind of absolutely dominated versus XRP since around mid-November 2024. So I think this is a part of it as well. They're seeing their bags shrink versus people who hold XRP, and that's fine. Let's even zoom out to the 5 year, even on the 5 year. Okay, we have now actually surpassed Bitcoin. The XRP has surpassed Bitcoin in the returns that you would have gained over this time frame. Now, listen, this is obviously one thing that is actually happening in the background. You have the United States signing this executive order, creating a national, potentially, excuse me, evaluating. All right, everyone calm down. Evaluating whether or not they would like to create a digital asset stockpile. So, just to be clear, it hasn't happened yet, but you're seeing people absolutely lose it. And this conversation, I'm about to go ahead and drop it on you guys. Once again, listen to it all the way through. Be sure to like this video and subscribe for more content like this. And in fact, if you're watching this, put your thoughts in the description below. Let's kick this off. Please let me know what you think. All right, all right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now, man. How are you doing?
I'm absolutely incredible. How about yourself?
Pretty good, man. I know we were firing some shots at one another, and sometimes it's best just to talk it out. We may not reach an agreement, but I just want to understand, because this is, just have a respectful conversation about, XRP has a ton of supporters, and I'm aware of that. Obviously, I'm a Bitcoin supporter, but I guess my question is, what for the people that support XRP, like what's the goal, like what kind of what is the change that you think XRP brings to the world that's going to be like a net good for humanity? And I'll try to answer the same question for Bitcoin, and I'll try to keep an open mind. Like I'll try to be convinced, like what is the net good? That is, it faster payments? Is it like what is the net goal that you think XRP brings to the world?
Well, first off, I respect the approach that you're taking to this conversation. I'm 100% aligned with that. Um, you know, I won't speak on behalf of Ripple, but what I will say is that the first thing that this company set out to do when it was founded was actually with the focus of cross border payments. One of the specific use cases and net benefits that one would understand from the Ripple, the Ripple payments network, as well as the XRP actual token to be used as a settlement layer across that payment network, is the elimination of what is called Nostro and Vostro accounts. Are you familiar with that terminology?
Everything up until the two accounts that you mentioned. But I get the idea of trying to improve cross-border payments. That's an issue.
And at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about. The Nostro
So
Vostro
so
gets into
so
FX, foreign exchange, and all of that. But
I got, yeah, but so why doesn't why so why do we need why doesn't Bitcoin solve that problem in your mind?
well, there's one very clear reason, which is going to be, well, there's two obvious ones, which are the speed and then the cost.
Okay, so yeah, so one of the biggest things that I've been in Bitcoin quite a while, and one of the whole one of the whole points is you don't want to have to trust Ripple or validators running like the nice thing about Bitcoin is anybody can run a node, anybody can, and it's a permissionless system, right? With XRP, like just the idea of having a company behind it, or like just like Ethereum now, for example, like Ethereum is going through hell right now, mainly because Vitalik exists, not because he's a bad guy, but because he exists at all. And the same thing's gonna, I fear, will happen to XRP. Like the existence of Ripple is perhaps its biggest weakness in terms of like cross border payments. Right now for Bitcoin, it's 6 sats a byte to send a transaction, and I'm not a technology person, and I run a Lightning node with over 50 channels, and I can send a cross border payment for less than 1,000 sats. I mean, I haven't ran into that problem. You know what I mean? And the nice thing about Bitcoin is there you don't have to trust anybody. Nobody owns half the supply. Although I get it. You could say MicroStrategy is buying up some, which look, I'll stand against that too. But I just don't know. I think Bitcoin solves cross border payments. You know what I mean? We're on the same team there, though. We want to solve that problem.
100%, 100%. I love the. It's clear that you don't have this complete like dissonance going on that I think we're seeing across the Bitcoin community. I respect that. You know, you understand that. Okay, so centralization kind of comes back when you have micro strategies in place, or even potentially if you have banks starting to custody all of these assets, you might have a BNY Mellon that ends up actually custodying all the Bitcoin anyway, right? That's what could happen. But back to the actual conversation, uh, I've never used the Lightning Network, I will agree. But what I'm going to imagine is that for a bank who is looking to transfer potentially hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars at a time across border, the fees that are associated with trying to use Bitcoin to do that are different. And once again, the bank doesn't need to have a network where no one is in control, right? The bank doesn't care about that. The bank wants cheap, quick payments that allow their customers to transact and speed up the flow of money around the world. That is the problem that Ripple is solving. It's not solving the problem of decentralization. Does that make sense? You're on mute. I'm not sure if you heard me or not. Well, all right. So, listen. Uh, what an interesting situation here. I really find this to be fascinating. Um, the conversation that we were having was a little bit deeper than what we just went through there, but um, and this guy also seems to be very intelligent, right? I want to say that, and very humble as well in that intelligence, and I really appreciate and respect that, and I admire that, and I am inspired by that. Now, what is clear here is I think it's not clear actually. I would love to continue that conversation because it's not clear where there is a disconnect of understanding what Ripple, the company, has intended to solve with the XRPL and their payments network versus what Bitcoin solves as this decentralized money system, right? It's a very, very different use case. It's a very different thing. Okay. So, anyways, would love to continue this conversation and to have more conversations like this in general, because what I'm feeling is that there may be simply just important conversations that need to be had around this.
I pulled into my house and I think it jumped from Wi-Fi to cellular and it messed it up.
Ah, gotcha, gotcha,
But
gotcha.
so let me ask. So I don't. It sounds like you don't know much about the Lightning Network. I don't know much about cross-border payments, and how XRP solves that and everything. But let me ask you this to your question. Like, why do we want to help banks? I agree that there's an investment thesis there, right? Like, if you can buy stock in a company or XRP, and that network ends up helping banks do cross-border payments, I'll give you that. Perhaps there's some value there, but like, why is that a good thing for humanity? Like, at least me, I'm part, like, I went through the global financial crisis. uh, I came into the workforce when at a time where I realized, wait a second. I looked around me and I was like, there's like people my age really aren't going to have, unless you know they're not going to be able to have the same opportunity that their parents did, right? If you're 25 years old right now, owning a home, with one parent that works, like that dream, like I'm in the US, that dream, it's gone. It's not a reality anymore. And we have to say, why? Like, why did that disappear? What happened? And I'm not suggesting that central banks are all of the problem, but at least in my life, they have been a big part of the problem. Like, I'm not a fan of Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan Chase. I'm not saying I want harm to come to the guy. I don't want anything bad to happen to him. But I don't really want to invest in any company that helps make him stronger, that gives him more of a monopoly on money. I also don't want anarchy like you suggested. There are many examples throughout history where centralized governments and banking cartels have not owned the money printer and society still functions in a very peaceful way. So then that would be my question. Let's assume that you're right, that XRP and Ripple and that blockchain, that network of validators improves cross-border payments and now banks get more powerful. I would say that that might end up being it might be a net positive from an investment thesis, and that's good for holders of the token, and I think that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. People should be free to invest in whatever they want to invest in, but we have to ask ourselves, like, what's the end game? Do we really want to help make central banks more powerful? And for me, I want to make them less powerful. I don't necessarily want them to go away. But banks, in my opinion, are like part of the problem, not loaning to minorities as much as they loan to people who are, it's crony capitalism. They are part of the problem, and I'm not angry. I'm just passionate about it. Like, I don't want to make them stronger. In fact, I think the sovereign individuals of the world should take a little bit of that power back. Not all of it. No, I don't want banks to go away, but we should take a little bit of it back. I think that banking and crony capitalism is where a lot of the problems in the world right now are coming from. I think that's why in the United States, Americans, Democrats and Republicans alike, are so upset with the politicians. It's because the money's broken. So I don't want to empower those folks. Like, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm coming at it from. Even if it did work, I actually want XRP to break even more if the ultimate goal is to empower central banks. You know what I'm saying?
You know, Brian, I really, really love what you're saying, and it's clear to me once again here that you are an extremely intelligent individual. You've studied a little bit of history and understand the monetary history of how we got to where we are today. And I think what there may be a sort of philosophical uh, difference, and I think this happens often between the people in this XRP Ripple space and people that don't want to support it or even just invest in it. The philosophy for someone like myself is that I agree with you, Brian, but I also know that where I stand today, there is very, very little that I, as an individual, am going to be able to do about what's happening. And instead of, being upset about it, it's just as simple as, well, if you can't beat them, join them. Now, that's not an intellectual answer, but it is a philosophical answer to what you're saying. Um, that's where people in the Ripple space have gotten to, is we understand that this system has been pinned against us since we were born. So for us, this isn't a matter of, fight the system with my $5 in my bank account relative to Jamie Dimon. It's, oh, what is Jamie Dimon doing next? Because I'm going to want to participate in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And I. So yeah, that's a philosophical difference of I guess the two communities. I would just I would just say that I don't think our destiny is to lose. I think in January of 2009, the people of the world were presented with an option. It wasn't the first option. It was at minimum at least the 10th iteration of a money that wasn't controlled by a central player. Even in the United States, our money wasn't always controlled by the Federal Reserve. And actually, we declared our independence in 1776. The United States actually didn't have its own mint until I think it was the 1790s. We went 20 years where we were still dependent on the British pound. But my point is, I don't think it's hopeless. I don't think we should live a life where uh, we have to sacrifice what we believe to be a moral good in order to survive. Um, you know, it's like I am very opposed. Like Jamie Dimon, like there's these little cliches people say on Twitter, like Jamie Dimon was Epstein's banker. Man, that's actually true. He was. He was Epstein's banker. And that's not a conspiracy theory. I just wish that we could somehow join forces and realize that we shouldn't you should not be in a position at 20 years old or 30 years old or 40 years old. I'm in my early 40s where you have to say this is the hand that we have all been dealt. If you're in your 20s or 30s, banks have done nothing but fuck that generation. Excuse my language. And when like truly destroy that generation, and that's not a problem. I don't know where you live, and it's none of my business. But that's not a problem that's unique to the United States. It's 10 times worse. Central banks in countries that are poorer have absolutely wrecked societies. We actually have a banking system here in the United States that kind of works. It works much better for some people than it does other people. But in many other countries throughout the world, for example, El Salvador, they have been known as the Bitcoin country. No matter how we feel about that, El Salvador actually doesn't control its own currency. Their currency is the dollar. And there's not anarchy there. In fact, there's the exact opposite. Most people would say that government there is a little over. They're putting people in prison with no trial. But a government. My point is, there are actually a lot of countries in Central America that use the dollar as their currency because their local currency has been utterly destroyed. I wish we could join the same team and say, hey, let's not empower these bankers. We shouldn't have to join an evil team to win. And I see what you're saying, like as an investment. It's like, let's say you're against big oil. I'm not, but whatever. Let's say you're against big oil. I don't think you should be forced to invest in Exxon to feed your family or to be able to make sure that your kids have a better life than you do. And I think with Bitcoin, like we actually have a chance. And I truly believe that a lot of these altcoins, and, and I actually think XRP as an investment, if they end up getting involved when like banks actually do adopt them for cross-border payments, it actually could end up being a good investment. The XRP token has went up. I mean, I remember it was not so long ago, it was 29 cents, and now it's probably over $3. It could go up, but eventually it's an investment more than it is a revolution. And when you see a revolution that has legs that can do it, man, that's where Bitcoin Bitcoin is a once in a lifetime opportunity, an opportunity for real change. And the fact that Crypto Titan, the fact Titan, that the United States government and several governments throughout the world have heard us, and that means XRP too. The fact that they have heard our voice, that is a testament to the fact that the revolution it's working. They've had to recognize us now. The little man, the government has never given a shit about us. You could die and they do not care, but now they do. Now they're talking about Bitcoin. Now they're talking about XRP and Ethereum and digital assets. And I I think we have a chance. They're listening not because they want to. They're listening because we have a big enough voice now that they have to. But the issue is they're going to how do you destroy a revolution? Well, you divide the revolutionaries, right? You put people in a Bitcoin camp, an XRP camp, and then you turn them against each other. And then the revolutionaries don't even know what they're fighting for anymore. Like you ask somebody in Ethereum, like, what is your goal? What's the ultimate? And they'll say, well, we want to be the world's computer. Well, what does that mean? Like, what are we going to use the world's computer for? Anyway, that's kind of where I'm at. I just wish that I'll keep firing shots at XRP, but it's not out of malice or anger at an individual. I do think Brad Garlinghouse, even having a leader like that, although you would think it would be a strength because they can go to Washington, they can ask for money, they can donate money, they can try to curry political favor. But brother, isn't that the system we were trying to destroy? That we're saying, no, man, your best buddy should not be able to go to Washington, D.C., pay a politician $25 million and then get his way. Man, that's the system we're trying to tear down. And That's what we need to rally against, because the tides will turn, man, and they will be against us again one day. You know what I'm saying? I'll shut up now.
No, this is great. This is great, and I would agree with you 100% of the way. One of the questions that I would ask is around the origin of Bitcoin itself, because in reality, Brian, I don't think that there's a very clear answer as to where it came from. So when we and you can respond to that shortly. I'll shut up, but um, one of the biggest things that the people in our community understand is that, well, we don't know where Bitcoin came from, and that's actually a threat to the revolution as well, because if the creator of Bitcoin were not necessarily a revolutionary, or were potentially actually an actor in also continuing the system as we believe it to be, we don't know, right? So that's where you can get a little bit more conspiratorial and really start to get into the idea of game theory around why does Bitcoin actually exist, and what if it were not coming from the outside of the system that we're talking about looking to overthrow or revolutionize. Do you see what I'm saying there a little bit?
Yeah, no, I do. I think one of the I think the history of cryptocurrency, even cryptocurrency that predates Bitcoin, is just fascinating. Whether you're part of it, part of the revolution, or no matter what token you like, reading about the history of where did cryptography come from, and how did we get to that white paper in October of 2008. And that's a fun rabbit hole to go down. Like, did the CIA create Bitcoin? Who was Satoshi Nakamoto? Was it a group of people? Was it Adam Back? Was it Hal Finney? Was it Peter Todd? Was it Nick Szabo? Who did it? Who created it? The beauty of Bitcoin, it's an open, permissionless protocol. And people argue, like, was Bitcoin a discovery or an invention? Like gravity. Was gravity discovered, or is it just a law? So that's not a great analogy, actually. The point of it, the point of Bitcoin's origin story, based on the white paper and the emails that we have from Satoshi, we don't know a lot about him, but he certainly seemed to be a revolutionary. The Genesis block of Bitcoin is labeled forever, for all of eternity, with chancellor on the brink of second bank bailout. Clearly, Satoshi in 2008, here we had a banking crisis in the United States in 2000, between 2006 and 2008, the global financial crisis. Clearly, Satoshi was referencing that in the first block, the Genesis block, which is a famous block. So it seems like he created it almost in a response to the global financial price crisis, or at least released it at that time, because it was a very fair launch, Tyson. Satoshi told the world, he said, listen, this was on Halloween in 2008. Satoshi published the white paper and told the world, I've created peer to peer digital cash. It's going to work this time. I want everybody to read the paper. So Satoshi published the paper. All the cypherpunks read it. Anybody that mattered, that was trying to create a cryptocurrency, read that paper in October of 2008. He did not launch Bitcoin then. He wanted everybody to read the paper, comment on it, and get ready. He then launched the network. So that was Halloween of 2008. He launched the network on January 3rd of 2009 and mined the first block. So on January 2nd, 2009, there were zero Bitcoin in the world. The first block got mined. There were 50. Satoshi made those 50 Bitcoin unspendable. They can never be spent. They're locked forever, and that can be proven cryptographically. He waited 3 days before he mined the second block. Now that's weird, because Bitcoin's block interval is 10 minutes. Satoshi powered down his laptop, let the world see that he had mined the first block, and then booted back up on around January 5th or 6th, to mine the second block, and then 50 Bitcoin. So that's actually a fascinating read. Like, why did Satoshi power down his computer then? A lot of people say he wanted a fair distribution of coins. There's a lot of history there. The short answer to your question, though, is it doesn't really matter who Satoshi was. Just like it doesn't, when you talk about like the laws of motion, it doesn't matter who Isaac Newton was. Force equals mass times acceleration. It's a law, and Bitcoin is a protocol, so it doesn't really matter who created it. I think there's a non-zero chance that the CIA created it. In fact, the CIA we know created SHA-256. So there is a non-zero chance that the CIA created Bitcoin. Now, the crazy thing would be if you are a federal, there would have been incentive to do it, because if you're the federal government, Bitcoin was an inevitability. Ultimately, SHA-256, private key, public key cryptography, like all of the parts were there, so that if you are a state, right, controlling the money gives you a lot of power. The writing was on the wall. Like eventually, somebody was going to put all this together and create a network like Bitcoin. And if you were the state, you could have front run it, because Satoshi has about 750,000 coins that have never moved. Maybe those are, government coins. We may never know. Although eventually those coins will probably move with quantum computing. I'm rambling a little bit now, I think the origin stories of Bitcoin are fascinating, but it doesn't really matter who Satoshi is, and that's why there's that saying, "We are all Satoshi." So whoever Satoshi is, they have no control over the protocol at this point, and they've been gone for over a decade. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right. Wow, Brian, you've clearly thought this through, and I really, really respect that. And I guess this is a question I would pose. The Satoshi having zero influence to me would be somewhat questionable based upon the size of the holdings of the Satoshi wallet. Am I incorrect in saying that Satoshi probably holds the most than anyone else does?
No, no, no. No, Titan. I would say you're right. Satoshi, although we don't know exactly what addresses he controls, I think it's fair to say that Satoshi probably, whoever he, she, or they are, own somewhere around 700,000 coins. So that would be the single largest holder in the world. You there, Titan?
Oh yeah, sorry. And I would say that that would be a threat when it comes to the only reason it starts to matter is when you start to now involve nation states, right? So now we're involving the United States government potentially purchasing, owning, and leveraging Bitcoin as a sort of asset that once again they don't even have any jurisdiction over the largest holder of this asset. And in the United States, that is just not a necessity, right? We have what is the largest, most distributed, most adopted form of money, being the United States dollar, and we have complete control over that. So for us to start to give up that sovereignty that we have over our money system and hand that to some unknown actor, I don't think would be a very wise decision from a nation state perspective.
Titan, I think, man, that is a great point. Hear me out though. So number one, I agree with you, and I think this is a critical point. The largest, most successful monetary network in the world is the United States dollar. You can go anywhere in the world, and anybody will accept your dollars. They may not accept my Bitcoin, they may not accept your XRP, but anybody in the world recognizes one of those green sheets of paper with a little number printed on it. It is the largest monetary network in the world, bar none. So now having control over that monetary network, absolute unrivaled control over the USD monetary network for over 100 years, has given the United States unbelievable power over global policy. Thankfully, we've done a lot of good with that. Now, we've done a lot of bad, but for the most part, I would say the United States has been a net good for the world. So your question is, wait a second, Brian. We've got why would the US want to support Bitcoin at all? Why would they want to relinquish their control over a huge monetary network that's unrivaled and already working? Well, here's the problem. Imagine, right? Let's use XRP as an example. And forgive me if I don't know all of the economics. I'm not an XRP network expert. I never will be. So, but what we do know is Ripple, a company, controls a large portion of the supply in escrow. And every month, they're at least given the opportunity to sell some XRP from that escrow, or they can just lock it up again. And there's an understanding, an implicit understanding between Ripple and the community. Imagine next month if Ripple said, screw it, we're going to dump all of the XRP on the market tomorrow. Well, XRP would crash to a penny, and that would go against their contract with the XRP army. And the XRP army would lose faith in XRP, the token, because they abused that trust, right? A monetary system that is trust based can be corrupted. It always has been. So, what happened? So the question is, we clearly the United States wouldn't willingly give up control over their monetary network. No country in their right mind. So why are they entertaining? Uh, why are they talking about Bitcoin? Well, here's the problem: they broke the trust. They broke the trust in the network by printing money, right? Because when you print money, you can do anything your constituents want you to do. You can fight endless wars. You can build roads and bridges to nowhere. You can fund programs that don't work. You can fund programs that do work. You can fund healthcare. You can fund Social Security. Well, in the US right now, like a lot of people think the national debt is a joke. It's not a joke. We're $36 trillion in debt. To give you an example of how much that is, 1 trillion seconds ago, because the human mind can't comprehend big numbers. So we're $36 trillion in debt. A trillion seconds ago was 32,000 years ago. Punch it in Google. How many years ago was a trillion seconds? It was 32,000 years ago. It was before the last ice age. Manhattan was under a sheet of ice. So people that matter, mainly nation states, like China would be a good example, are looking at the US just like they did after the Vietnam War when we came off the gold standard in the early 70s, because the rest of the world figured out that we were printing money we didn't have gold to back to fight in Vietnam. The French, this is all true, man. Please look this up, Titan. The French parked a barge in the New York harbor and started running cash pallets into the Federal Reserve Bank of New York to take their gold because they knew we had printed. That was when we were on the gold standard. The French started wheeling pallets of cash over a period of a few weeks into the Federal Reserve Bank of New York to get their gold because they realized we had printed more cash than we had gold to fight the Vietnam War over the night throughout the 1960s. So Richard Nixon then, and so all of the other countries said, well, what the hell do the French know? Why are the French taking all their gold from the United States? So our gold reserves in the US were rapidly being depleted. So Richard Nixon said, "No, stop! Like we can't do it." They called our bluff. Richard Nixon he went on television. He said, "I'm going to temporarily, that was his word, not mine, temporarily suspend the convertibility of gold and dollars. So or else we would have lost all of our gold." The trust in the U.S. monetary network was broken in 1971. So how did we stay on that network for another 50 years? It is called the petrodollar. The United States went to Saudi. It's a long story, and I'm going somewhere with this, Titan. The United States went to Saudi Arabia and said, "Hey, we will protect you, but we need you to sell all of your oil to the rest of the world in dollars." So that means anytime any country wanted to buy oil, they had to first buy dollars. So we created constant demand for the dollar. So we fell off the gold standard, but we went on the petrodollar. There was a global demand for dollars for 4 or 5 decades because Saudi Arabia would only sell oil in dollars. So we had a global demand. Everybody wanted my money as an American. So the value of my money, it went up, even though we went off the gold standard. Now, fast forward past the global financial crisis, we did something called quantitative easing. We just started printing money. Now we're $36 trillion in debt. And the way the federal government raises money now, like people think it's income tax. Well, how does the federal government pay for things? Oh, they would just tax the people. That's actually not, that is part of it. But the biggest way the federal government raises money is they issue treasury bonds, and they do this every month. Like that's why when people say like, oh, well, in your portfolio be 70% stocks, 30% bonds. Well, historically, nation states buy United States bonds. So that's why when people say China owns most of the US debt or a lot of the US debt, that's what they mean. So we issue bonds, China buys it, Japan buys it, all the countries of the world buy our debt. But guess what happened over the last decade? Other countries quit buying our debt and started selling their bonds. What does that tell you? People are losing faith in the dollar and the USD monetary network because of the 36. People are finally starting to say, wait a second, these motherfuckers aren't going to be able to pay it back. They don't have it. The only way that we can pay back the bonds that we owe is to print more money, which devalues the bond. So the United States is looking around. They would never relinquish the power. They would never turn it over willingly. But after 5 decades of poor monetary policy, and this happens with most fiat currencies, by the way, after 5 decades of bad policy, it just so happens that in your lifetime and in my lifetime, the system is breaking. The system of money of that network, that blockchain, it's not a blockchain, but put it in our speak, right? That monetary network is failing. So the United States has to look ahead and say, okay, I can't lose complete control of it. Nothing, like I don't want it to be replaced, but what's next? Like how do I buoy it? And they don't understand Bitcoin, they don't understand XRP or Ethereum or any of this shit. But they know that their network is losing. Remember, I can tell you, hardly any of my wealth is in dollars. Even yours, you're like, screw that. I don't want dollars. I want XRP. You want anything but dollars. If you're holding dollars, you're losing. You should be in anything but the dollar. If you're losing, everybody's like, Brian, the stock market's up. It's like, of course the stock market's up. The dollar's losing value faster than you can earn it. So long story short, Titan, that they don't want to give up control to Bitcoin. They don't want to lose that ability to control the monetary policy completely. But it's been taken from them. It's been taken from them from years of abuse. Does that make sense?
Thank you so much for the way that you laid that out. Seriously, that was a beautiful history and summation of what has occurred over history here and involving the Bretton Woods system and so on and so forth. Um, you know, here's what I would say in response to that. We have an option that we're discussing here. One option is to start to give it over to something where, once again, I have no idea who the largest holder is and have no control over that network in any way. Or we move over to the one that is a United States based company. There is complete control over there's an escrow, is what it is. It's an escrow mechanism that allows Ripple to consistently have the option to dump. Okay. And the United States government can have, what can I say, jurisdiction over that escrow. It may not be something that's given to them, but if we had to be super conspiratorial, it may be the case. It may be the case that there has been a deal that has been struck in to fork over this escrow to the United States government in order to solve this issue that we're speaking of. But and to your point, Brian, of what happened in the past with the petrodollar, that's not something that comes up overnight. Okay, that's something that was really well thought out in advance, and that had an impact that lasted for, like you said, over 5 decades. So, with that said, if the United States government were going to go through a situation like that again, I would imagine that we have people that are smart enough that are going to come up with the next solution as well. And to be honest, when you look at the writing that's on the wall, when you really take the time to understand why Ripple exists, where it came from, who the founders are, then you start to paint this picture around, wow, there's a chance that this response to the weakening of the United States dollar hegemony may have been really well thought out. And there's a chance that this was what they came up with as a 1-2 punch. There's a chance that Bitcoin also came, as you said, is an inevitability. So the way my mind has come, this is my conspiracy theory. This is complete. Now I'm going off. Bitcoin was created, like you said, because it was an inevitability, right? So if I were the United States, I would have commissioned someone to figure it out. We have the internet, we have governments around the world that are going to try to find a way to dethrone the dollar. Figure this out. What could they possibly do that would work? Okay, they come up with this Bitcoin. Great. In the meantime, I'm also coming up with a response to Bitcoin. And when you look at Ripple and when you look at XRP, it's not a technological revolution. What it is a political function that allows the United States to get everyone to agree with the concept of a distributed ledger and a decentralized currency while actually implementing something that's quite a bit different, but allows us to retain that global dollar dominance through the use of stablecoins.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think so far we've been talking like a philosophical view of like where are we philosophically, and I actually agree with you on what you said. The it right there in terms of how these things could have come to be. The question, from a philosophical standpoint, is like, do you think an extremely powerful centralized government it is a good thing? And in the United States, our founding fathers felt that government was one of the most important things, and they also recognized that a limited government was the best form. And so for me, I don't really want to support anything that empowers the government. And let's say, I don't know if you're in the US, but let's just use the US as an example. Let's say you're a big Trump supporter or you're a big Biden supporter. Like our democracy is in its in its it's the end of it's like we're nearing the end. Whether the end is like the next 50 years, the next 100 years, even like the Roman Empire fell, like every the Persian Empire fell, they all fall. Nothing lasts forever. I would just argue that uh, I don't want to invest in something or dedicate my life to something that's going to make government more powerful. It's already powerful enough. They control the military, they control the guns, they control everything. So that's like just a philosophical difference I think between Bitcoiners and other communities. In terms of like moving money, like in a like on a technical level, I know a ton about how Bitcoin works on a technical level. I don't know much about how XRP works, but I'll tell you, in 2025 you don't really need a blockchain or validators to move money across a border. The biggest problem moving money across borders is government. You know, it's like why, like, if you're in the U.S. and somebody has PayPal, for example, You can use PayPal to pay somebody. Let's say you live in Wisconsin, you can PayPal somebody that lives in Georgia, another state in the United States. But as soon as that person crosses into Mexico, PayPal no longer works. And it's not that the app doesn't work, it's not that it couldn't work, it's that governments don't want it to work. Like it actually would. I mean, moving money in a digital world like ours is as easy as changing a ledger. And you don't really need a blockchain for that. Right, so that's like a technical question. Is like, what problem does a blockchain solve? Why do you need a blockchain to move a digital token? In fact, like, like the idea, I think XRP. One of the ideas is let's say you want to do a conversion between a dollar and a euro. Like ultimately, the two endpoints, like that's the like getting on and off the blockchain is one of the problems. But I just don't. I mean, we should just ask governments, hey, let us use PayPal cross borders. Like, what's wrong with that? You know what I'm saying?
Right, right. So I agree. I agree. But this technology that we're kind of speaking on is so far developed. I want to share with you something. I'll if you end up, I'll tweet it at you or whatever. And I just followed you in
Yeah,
case you want to follow me back, and I can DM it.
yeah. I followed you. Yep.
Okay, cool. So, and listen, this is just like I'm not excited about all of this stuff, right? I don't think that this is all going to be great. But what I do understand is that it is occurring. And what I'm going to send to you is something from the Bank for International Settlements, the central bank of the central banks around the world, and the kind of work that's been done to basically allow and create what you're saying about, let's just, send the money through PayPal uh, internationally. The technology to be able to do that all the way down to the actual central bank deposits themselves is being done. And that work, it doesn't necessarily need to have a blockchain or a distributed ledger technology. But let's be honest, if we wanted to, if we wanted to enrich ourselves as we do that, as we create this system, we're going to add a token to it. You know, plain and simple. If we want to also, as a United States government, let's imagine, enforce our standing in this system as we allow there to be this free global sort of trade of money, then we'd want to have a token so that we can basically measure the value of this new system. And that's what Ripple and XRP really is. And there's also other solutions that are even deeper on an international level that the Bank for International Settlements has created that make this look even more fucking spooky and crazy. But
But
I digress.
I can accept that. So it sounds like even your view. That's one of the things. So like when there's something that's like when there's a revolution, right? When there's something you believe in, something that like I would go to prison for Bitcoin, for example. And I'm a father. Like I got kids. Like it's something that I think I think it's already made the world better. Like I actually think that one of the reasons Brad Garlinghouse was in Washington D.C. is because of Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin paved the way, right? It's making a difference, right? People are recognizing us. But there, to me, man, I've been around. For like I remember when XRP was way younger, and it was like XRP the Army, XRP the Standard, and I think XRP is going to $449. That used to be kind of the meme, and the people are so that support it are so passionate, just so, and I don't understand why. Like what you've described to me, Titan, is hey, this isn't really a revolution. It's nothing. We're trying to solve cross-border payments. I'm going to invest in the XRP token, which is essentially like a share in Ripple's success. But these people on the internet, like you'll say, hey, listen, that doesn't really sound terribly innovative, and you're immediately attacked by like 1,000 people, and it's like, wait a second, like, and then the whole Bitcoin maximalist thing that came about years ago. Like what Bitcoiners started realizing was like, God damn, everybody's getting scammed. Like, dude, people were on the internet, like losing their life savings And so there was this group of people that started saying, "Hey, like, be careful. Like, I know you just came 3 weeks ago. Like, there even used to be scams like, send me one Bitcoin, I'll send you two back. You've seen those, right?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, bro. So when those first came out, they got a lot of people, like John McAfee. Like, it would be like, "Hey, send me zero point 0.2 Bitcoin and I'll send you zero point 0.4." Like, people used to fall for that. And so Bitcoiners kind of got together. It was even worse before that. Bitcoiners kind of got together and said, "Damn, man, we got to protect, like, people are like downloading Coinbase and buying some of these coins, and then they're entered into this world that Ripple's actually, XRP is not really chaotic. It's a pretty straightforward. You just buy XRP and you can secure it with your wallet and everything. But then people got into like dexes and initial coin offerings, and so now everybody just says, "Oh, fuck him, he's just a Bitcoin maxi," and then nobody respects what they say. Whereas most Bitcoin maximalists, they're not toxic. They just want to understand where people are coming from and help. And so what I'm hearing is, it almost sounds like, hey, listen, the system needs, the status quo needs help. We think XRP can help it, and therefore I'm going to make an investment in that token. But that's not what the community online. It's like a cult, just like the Bitcoin cult. I'll give you that. You know, but I'll tell you too, Titan. If you've never used, like, no, nobody, none of the other tokens, right? Like Ethereum or Bitcoin Cash, or, I mean, there's hundreds of them. Tron, Link, they change all the time. Doge, none of them want you to know that the Bitcoin Lightning Network exists, which is a network on top of Bitcoin, and it's also a decentralized, permissionless, open network. Uh, Nobody wants you to know that that exists, so it doesn't surprise me at all that you've never used it. But what if I told you you could download a wallet from the App Store? I don't know what country you live in. If you live in the United States, there's one called Aqua, AQUA. You could download it. It's also available in Central South America and Mexico and Canada. So if you live on that continent, you could download a wallet from the App Store called Aqua, AQUA. I think it works in Europe, although I haven't been there. Doesn't matter. There's other Lightning wallets that are in Europe, and you should experience it. If you download that, you will see you can send Bitcoin for less than a penny at the speed of light. Like, it is unbelievably fast. Nobody wants you to know that exists, because once people realize that the Lightning Network exists, it obsoletes like 90% of the use case for all the other altcoins. Not
Mm.
XRP. It sounds like XRP solving a different problem. But all the other ones, oh, we're faster than Bitcoin. We're more private than Bitcoin. Whereas the Lightning Network is like super private. I'm going to shut up. I want to say one more thing and then I'm going to shut up. If you download that wallet, though, I would love to show you. I could send you some Bitcoin and you would see how quick it works. There's nothing quicker. The other thing I would say is, in terms of I wanted to say something about how you suggested that a company, I forget what it was, but it's something that made me wanted to tell you, the only decision you have to make with Bitcoin is whether you want to use it or not. You're not going to be penalized if you don't. You had mentioned something about like the company or Ripple. It's like the only question anybody can ask with Bitcoin is, do you want to use it or not? There's no penalty for not using it. There's no penalty for using it. And that question applies to everybody. It applies to families, churches, communities, pension plans, 401k plans, uh, hedge funds, and nation states. And here's the problem with MicroStrategy buying the Bitcoin: nobody can stop him from doing it. Nobody can. That is the only question every individual has to answer for themselves. Do you want to participate in this monetary network or not? And I think that's a beautiful thing. Like there were times, like with Ethereum, there was this thing called the DAO hack. Where somebody was hacked for $40 million worth of Ethereum. The Ethereum Foundation got together and rolled the blockchain back to prior to the hack, and that's actually what created Ethereum Classic. So Ethereum Classic, the $40 million hack still exists, and in the Ethereum as you know it today, they rolled the chain back. they basically reverse like 20 blocks or maybe even more blocks than that to fix it. I'm rambling a little bit now. I don't even know where I was going with all that. But listen, I got your point, and I think it's a good. I don't think it's like a terrible investment. I just don't think it's revolutionary. I don't think it's a cryptocurrency. I don't think it's. I don't know why people get so mad when we say like I don't really want the government to invest in Ripple, and for that matter, I actually don't want them to invest in Bitcoin either. Like I could care less. You know what I'm saying?
Love that. And Brian, I think that is where there's a fork in that road. There are people who are saying the first half of what you said, but aren't willing to acknowledge the second half. And that is where people are getting upset in the XRP community. That's really it. I think, and it sucks because it should never be this adversarial at all, and it's just without putting that context in place, Brian. That's what most people are interpreting as, oh, XRP should not be in the strategic reserve, but Bitcoin should be. Which in reality, that as a Bitcoiner, as a true Bitcoiner, that does not make sense. There's cognitive dissonance, and that is why people write off Bitcoin maximalists because it's just completely hypocritical.
Yeah, no, yeah. So so Bitcoin, like when people say, "Oh, he's a Bitcoin maxi," it's like we haven't really defined what that is. I would say most Bitcoin maximalists could care less if the U.S. invests in Bitcoin or not. We think it's going to happen because it's like kind of adoption. Like, how does something get adopted, right? So there's like the iPhone, for example, just like organic growth, and then there's like Saifedean would say, um, gunpowder. It's like nobody adopted gunpowder for any other reason than if you didn't, you were going to die. Like in the United States, for example, the Native Americans did not have gunpowder, and they do not exist in any large way anymore. The adoption of gunpowder changed warfare. You didn't get to say, "Oh, well, I'm not going to play that game." If you didn't adopt it, you lost. And same thing with nuclear weapons. Unfortunately, there's all this game theory. Talk about game theory. It's like the world would clearly be better if nobody owned nukes, but
Yep.
you don't really have a choice not to. You have to because the game theory of it says if you don't, your adversary will. So I think the government will ultimately end up adopting it, but it doesn't matter if they do or not. In fact, I would prefer families and churches and pension funds like the fire department fund, the plumbers and pipe fitter union, to get involved and do it that way. But man, I think this has been a good conversation. I hear you. I'll keep fire. I think we've only got one chance at a revolution that can help humanity. I think it's that big of a deal, and that's why I'm so passionate about it. So
Yeah.
you'll see me fire off against it, but it won't be personal. I don't think people. I do think there are some bad players. I think there are in both communities. I do think there are some people in the XR community, P community. And I remember from a while back, like a lot of them disappeared. Actually, a lot of them were ostracized from the XRP community. Um, there are some people who do get paid. I feel to create this online, uh, basically like marketers. And I'm not saying paying people to market is it's not illegal, but I think they drum up a lot of this drama. I mean, it's like when XRP went on the rally against Bitcoin. I mean, Ripple funded the environmental attack on Bitcoin. A lot of data supports that Ripple was the one who donated to Greenpeace to create a year-long campaign against Bitcoin. Did you know that?
I remember seeing some stuff about it, but I don't have any. No, I didn't
Yeah,
have any hard data on it.
I'll send you the link of Ripple made a huge donation to Greenpeace to basically create FUD about Bitcoin's mining, how Bitcoin mining would damage the environment. But anyways, Titan, listen, I respect your opinion. I actually think it could be end up being a good investment. So
Likewise,
I,
Brian.
yeah, man, I want people to do well. I can tell you, I think over the long term, even from an investment standpoint, I know Bitcoin appears to be expensive. Bitcoin. If you add up all of the cryptocurrencies, um, the market cap, Bitcoin's $2 trillion. I'd have to look. I haven't looked in a while, but let's say the whole ecosystem is like, let's say $6 trillion, 5 trillion, 4 trillion. That rounds down to zero. All these coins are worth zero together. So a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm late to Bitcoin." Um, man, we're early.
Yep.
We're so early. We're at risk of all failing. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yep. I agree,
All right,
Brian.
brother.
And
Hey,
listen.
if you ever download Aqua Wallet,
Yep.
let me know, man. I would love to show you how the Lightning Network works.
Here's what we'll do. I'll download the app. I'll get it done throughout my day here today. I'll encourage you to do the same with Xaman Wallet. Okay, XAMAN. Okay, and
Okay.
we'll do a swap. Okay, fair enough. That way, whatever you send me in Bitcoin, I'll make sure that you get the equivalent in XRP. We can also compare the speed. I don't think it'll really be that revolutionary. It'll probably be the same speed. But and I think that would be awesome, just because it also allows us to I want to make sure that no matter what, you're able to participate in what's happening on what's happening with Ripple, and I'll obviously participate in what's happening with Bitcoin and the Lightning Network.
All right,
Um,
man.
and
Send me the link because I just
yeah,
Googled Zaman, so
yeah,
I don't. Yeah, I'll look into it. Send me the link though, and I'll send Aqua AQUA. I'll
yep.
send you what that looks like.
And
Okay.
and finally, Brian, I happen to be able to record this conversation. I think that what you went through and everything that you talked about was absolutely super informative. I just wanted to get a verbal permission from you to be able to repost this somewhere in the future in case it provides value to some other people as well.
Well, man, if you recorded it, I'd prefer you not to. Just I'll be honest, man. I've never really cared enough to say so much. I don't think I said anything that would dox me or.
No, not at all. And just think about how many people you could help, right? I'm not
Yeah,
saying that I have a big audience either, but just to have it be there in history that
I don't know,
you
man.
were
The,
there.
the, the XR, I don't want the XRP. If I misspoke, I don't think I misspoke about anything. But the last thing I need on me is the XRP army.
Nah,
As I
dude.
said, I don't want people to fail. Listen, I'll leave that up to you. I would prefer you wouldn't. I wanted to have a private conversation with somebody that I disagree with on the internet because it humanizes the thing. I'll leave that up to you, man. I mean, it's the internet. I assume that anything I say on the internet is gonna persist forever. So that's your choice, okay?
Fair enough. All
All right,
right,
man.
Brian.
Hey, Titan, you have a good one, okay, man. I
You,
hope I hope that you'll come over to the dark side and come over to the light side and realize that we can win together. That we don't have to empower central banks, and that we can be a little bit better together, man. Have a good one, okay?
I hope you're right. Have a good one, man.
All right, bye.